The Cultural Revolution, formerly the Great Proletarian Cultural Revolution, was a socio-political movement that took place in the People's Republic of China from 1966 until 1976. Set into motion by Mao Zedong, then chairman of the Communist Party of China. Its stated goal was to preserve true communist ideology in the country by purging remnants of capitalist and traditional elements from Chinese society, and to re-impose Maoist thought as the dominant ideology within the party. The revolution marked the return of Mao Zedong to a position of power after the Great Leap Forward. The movement paralyzed China politically and negatively affected the country's economy and society to a significant degree. The revolution was launched in May 1966, after Mao alleged that bourgeois elements had infiltrated the government and society at large, aiming to restore capitalism. He insisted that these revisionists be removed through violent class struggle. China's youth responded to Mao's appeal by forming Red Guard groups around the country. The movement spread into the military, urban workers, and the Communist Party leadership itself. It resulted in widespread factional struggles in all walks of life. In the top leadership, it led to a mass purge of senior officials, most notably Liu Shaoqi and Deng Xiaoping. During the same period, Mao's personality cult grew to immense proportions. Millions of people were persecuted in the violent struggles that ensued across the country, and suffered a wide range of abuses including public humiliation, arbitrary imprisonment, torture, sustained harassment, and seizure of property. A large segment of the population was forcibly displaced, most notably the transfer of urban youth to rural regions during the Down to the Countryside movement. Historical relics and artifacts were destroyed. Cultural and religious sites were ransacked. Mao officially declared the Cultural Revolution to have ended in 1969, but its active phase lasted until the death of the military leader Lin Biao in 1971. After Mao's death and the arrest of the Gang of Four in 1976, reformers led by Deng Xiaoping gradually began to dismantle the Maoist policies associated with the Cultural Revolution. In 1981, the party declared that the Cultural Revolution was responsible for the most severe setback and the heaviest losses suffered by the party, the country, and the people since the founding of the People's Republic. Background: Great Leap Forward in 1958. After China's first five-year plan, Mao called for grassroots socialism in order to accelerate his plans for turning China into a modern industrialized state. In this spirit, Mao launched the Great Leap Forward, established people's communes in the countryside, and began the mass mobilization of the people into collectives. Many communities were assigned production of a single commodity, steel. Mao vowed to increase agricultural production to twice 1957 levels. The Great Leap was an economic failure. Uneducated farmers attempted to produce steel on a massive scale, partially relying on backyard furnaces to achieve the production targets set by local cadres. The steel produced was low quality and largely useless. The Great Leap reduced harvest sizes and led to a decline in the production of most goods except substandard pig iron and steel. Furthermore, local authorities frequently exaggerated production numbers, hiding and intensifying the problem for several years. In the meantime, chaos in the collectives, bad weather, and exports of food necessarily to secure hard currency resulted in the Great Chinese Famine. Food was in desperate shortage, and production fell dramatically. The famine caused the deaths of millions of people, particularly in poorer inland regions. The Great Leap's failure reduced Mao's prestige within the party. Forced to take major responsibility, in 1959, Mao resigned as the President of the People's Republic of China, China's de jure head of state, and was succeeded by Liu Shaoqi. In July, senior party leaders convened at the scenic Mantlou to discuss policy. At the conference, Marshal Peng Dy, the Minister of Defense, criticized Great Leap policies in a private letter to Mao, writing that it was plagued by mismanagement and cautioning against elevating political dogma over the laws of economics. Despite the moderate tone of Peng's letter, Mao took it as a personal attack against his leadership. Following the conference, Mao had Peng removed from his posts, and accused him of being a right opportunist. Peng was replaced by Lin Biao, another Revolutionary Army general, who became a more staunch Mao supporter later in his career. While the Lushan conference served as a death knell for Peng, Mao's most vocal critic, it led to a shift of power to moderates led by Liu Shaoqi and Deng Xiaoping, who took effective control of the economy following 1959. By the early 1960s, many of the Great Leap's economic policies were reversed by initiatives spearheaded by Liu, Deng, and Zhou Enlai. This moderate group of pragmatists were unenthusiastic about Mao's utopian visions. Owing to his loss of esteem within the party, Mao developed a decadent and eccentric lifestyle. By 1962, while Zhou, Liu and Deng managed the affairs of state and the economy, Mao had effectively withdrawn from economic decision-making, and focused much of his time on further contemplating his contributions to Marxist-Leninist social theory, including the idea of continuous revolution. This theory's ultimate aim was to set the stage for Mao to restore his brand of communism and his personal prestige within the party. Sino-Soviet split and anti-revisionism. In the early 1950s, the People's Republic of China and the Soviet Union were the two largest communist states in the world. While they had initially been mutually supportive, disagreements arose following the ascendancy of Nikita Khrushchev to power in the Soviet Union after the death of Joseph Stalin. In 1956, Khrushchev denounced Stalin and his policies and subsequently set about implementing post-Stalinist economic reforms. Mao and many members of the Chinese Communist Party were opposed to these changes, believing that it would have negative repercussions for the worldwide Marxist movement, among whom Stalin was still viewed as a hero. Mao believed that Khrushchev was not adhering to Marxism-Leninism, but was instead a revisionist, altering his policies from basic Marxist-Leninist concepts, something Mao feared would allow capitalists to eventually regain control of the country. Relations between the two governments subsequently soured, with the Soviets refusing to support China's case for joining the United Nations and going back on the pledge to supply China with a nuclear weapon. Mao went on to publicly denounce revisionism in April 1960. Without pointing fingers at the Soviet Union, Mao criticized their ideological ally, the League of Communists of Yugoslavia, while the Soviets returned the favor by proxy via criticizing the Party of Labor of Albania, a Chinese ally. In 1963, the Chinese Communist Party began to openly denounce the Soviet Union, publishing a series of 9 polemics against its perceived revisionism, with one of them being titled On Khrushchev's Phony Communism and Historical Lessons for the World, in which Mao charged that Khrushchev was not only a revisionist but also increased the danger of capitalist restoration. Khrushchev's downfall from an internal coup d'état in 1964 also contributed to Mao's fears of his own political vulnerability, particularly because of his declining prestige amongst his colleagues following the Great Leap Forward. Precursor Mao set the scene for the Cultural Revolution by cleansing powerful officials of questionable loyalty who were based in Beijing. His approach was less than transparent, achieving this purge through newspaper articles, internal meetings, and skillfully employing his network of political allies. In late 1959, historian and Beijing deputy mayor Wu Han published a historical drama entitled Hai Rui Dismissed from Office. In the play, an honest civil servant, Hai Rui, is dismissed by a corrupt emperor. While Mao initially praised the play, in February 1965 he secretly commissioned his wife Jiang Qing and Shanghai propagandist Yao Wenyuan to publish an article criticizing it. Yao boldly alleged that Hai Rui was really an allegory attacking Mao, that is, Mao was the corrupt emperor and Peng Dy was the honest civil servant. Yao's article put Beijing Mayor Peng Zhen on the defensive. Peng, a powerful official and Wu Han's direct superior, was the head of the five-man group, a committee commissioned by Mao to study the potential for a cultural revolution. Peng Zhen, aware that he would be implicated if Wu indeed read an anti-Mao play, wished to contain Yao's influence. Yao's article was initially only published in select local newspapers. Peng forbade its publication in the nationally distributed People's Daily and other major newspapers under his control, instructing them to write exclusively about academic discussion and not pay heed to Yao's petty politics. While the literary battle against Peng raged, Mao fired Yang Shankan, director of the party's general office, an organ that controlled internal communications, on a series of unsubstantiated charges, installing in his stead staunch loyalist Wang Dongxing, head of Mao's security detail. Yang's dismissal likely emboldened Mao's allies to move against the factional rivals. In December, Defense Minister and Mao loyalist Lin Biao accused General Luo Ruiqing, the Chief of Staff of the People's Liberation Army, of being anti-Mao, alleging that Luo put too much emphasis on military training rather than Maoist political discussion. Despite initial skepticism in the Politburo of Luo's guilt, Mao pushed for an investigation, after which Luo was denounced, dismissed, and forced to deliver a self-criticism. Stress from the events led Luo to attempt suicide. Luo's removal secured the military command's loyalty to Mao. Februari Outline. Having ousted Luo and Yang, Mao returned his attention to Peng Zhen. On February 12, 1966, the five-man group issued a report known as the Februari Outline. The outline, sanctioned by the party center, defined Hai Rui as constructive academic discussion, and aimed to formally distance Peng Zhen from any political implications. However, Jiang Qing and Yao Wenyuan continued their denunciation of Wu Han and Peng Zhen. Meanwhile, Mao also sacked Propaganda Department Director Lu Dingyi, a Peng Zhen ally. Lu's removal gave Mao unrestricted access to the press. Mao would deliver his final blow to Peng Zhen at a high-profile Politburo meeting through loyalists Kang Sheng and Chen Boda. They accused Peng Zhen of opposing Mao, labeled the Februari Outline evidence of Peng Zhen's revisionism, and grouped him with three other disgraced officials as part of the Peng Luo Lu Yang anti-party clique. On May 16, the Politburo formalized the decisions by releasing an official document condemning Peng Zhen and his anti-party allies in the strongest terms, disbanding his five-man group and replacing it with the Maoist Cultural Revolution group.